is on.
Yes.
He yells at you when you join. How's everyone? Oh, God. Sitting here hurts my back. I need to get a chair. Oh, I can't hear you, Darren. You're muted.
Sugar, I got it. Yeah, I bought a chair like 6 months ago, and I realized, what have I been doing all this time without a proper chair?
Yeah. I lived in when I moved to San Antonio, I lived in a room in my mom's house, and it was tiny. So I didn't really have space for a chair. So I'm just sitting on this like little chest that I have all my books in. And it doesn't make any sense anymore because I live in like a nice apartment. So I have plenty of space. I can get a bookshelf even to put the books.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested in discovering new tools to make my workflows better than doing anything with my apartment.
That literally sounds like a description of a chair. A new tool to make my workflow better. Like,
dude, have you seen this new tool yet, dude? Oh my god, it's incredible. You can like lean back in it and like
yeah. I'll find some links and I'll send you some.
Yeah, I would love to see some information on that. That's sweet. How's my mic? Can you guys hear me well?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. It's like really low. It's like down here. If I had it up here, then it's like really weirdly visible, and I usually have it back here.
It's a weird looking mic.
It's a blue snowball.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean, I've had it forever, so if it sounds good, then it is good.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of echo? My apartment has quite a heckin' echo.
No,
it's okay. It's fine.
Cool.
I don't know how I come across, actually. I'm pretty close to the computer, but hopefully
You sound
it's okay.
good.
Yeah, you sound good too.
Sweet.
I was going to use my headphones, but then of course I had pulse audio issues. So.
Yeah. Actually, usually just happens when your speaker is pointed towards your mic. So that's what causes echo. So when you use headphones, you shouldn't have echo.
Yeah, if you haven't looked into it, see about switching to Pipewire. It's a drop-in replacement, but doesn't.
Yeah.
It
What's it
doesn't
called?
Pipewire. Pipewire. It's a drop.
Yeah, it's basically the replacement for Pulse Audio. I recently switched on
It's
my
not. It's not just that. It's a replacement for ALSA, Pulse Audio, and Jack. Which the fact that they were ambitious enough to add in Jack support. I'm like, well done, you.
Nice. This is much needed.
Yeah, because Pulse Audio was absolutely horrible. Like I've written ALSA plugins like with zero documentation, just banging my head against like a config file for a week, and it works, but it's painful.
Yeah.
Requires some patience, I'm sure.
Diligence, stupidity, foolhardiness, all of the above, maybe.
Yeah, lots of stupidity in Pulse Audio.
Definitely not.
Yeah, definitely. Like the thing about Pipewire is that it's actually fully compatible with Pulse Audio. So all the Pulse Audio apps think you're running Pulse Audio. So but actually it's only the kind of API surface of Pulse Audio, but actually it's all Pipewire. So, Pulse Audio volume tools and stuff still work. So, So but then it's much less buggy and much lower latency, much lower CPU usage too. It's just like generally better.
Sweet.
Well, do we want to get started or do we?
Sure.
I think we might have a couple of new community members here. I'm not sure if anybody would like to introduce themselves. Now might be a nice time to do that. I'll go first, I guess. My name's Darren. I'm working with the Themelio team, helping them out on some community issues and marketing and stuff like that. So nice to.
Recording has stopped.
Somehow the recording failed. It's okay. I have a backup running. It's still recording. So.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, nice to see all you guys and nice to meet the new folks who I haven't formally met yet.
That and the ominous recording bot who is creepy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if anyone noticed. I was a bit startled, going like, "I think I need a knife. Something's wrong.
Something's happening. So scary.
I don't trust
Yeah.
this or its face."
Definitely. Yeah. So, I'm Eric. I'm the founder of Themelio. So I'm the one in charge of the whole operation, I guess. So yeah.
I'm Jay. I'm one of the developers on the team. Do like a lot of compiler and virtual machine work on the blockchain, and working on the language right now, and also some stuff with the gossip layer.
I'm Mead, the head of DevOps. I put wheels to everything and give the systems life, amongst other things, you know.
Oh man, you guys undersell it so hard. Y'all are like superhuman. I'm Shane. I do front end development, and I'm working on the wallet. You'll know me from my recent blunder at not being able to get the wallet out properly for like 2 weeks. But I think I'm not going to say anything, but I'm working on it.
You think you're working on it?
No, I think I don't want to jinx it, but I think it's out properly. But I'm testing right now, so
It's very early days with
yeah.
with the wallet.
All right. Well, I guess that's all from the team. I think. I'm not sure. XXX Tur in the community there. I haven't met before. Nice to meet you. Positive bro. I think I've seen you on Twitter and stuff like that. Parim Param. I've also seen you around the place. Appreciate all you guys. Fellow Jitster. Not sure. But yeah. Okay. So let me see. Where would be a good place to start? So yeah, I guess if anybody has any questions at any point, just chime in. Yeah, we'll get things going. So
Yeah, and if anybody wanted to introduce themselves too, that has their mics off.
I'm taking the deafening silence as a no.
We'll get into it. We got time. All right. Actually, there was one question. I think it was Positive Bro had a question. Are we planning to do an ambassador program? That was the only one that came through in the community Discord.
That's a really good question. I mean, I think that we might. Like, I think that's a pretty good idea. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it would be really great for people to kind of advertise Themelio to their communities, have people know about us. So, yeah, I'm still kind of wondering how that would work. Like, is there some kind of incentives we might give to ambassadors? But definitely open to that.
Yeah, and I think to that point as well, that would be something that would be really good to hear more on from the community side of things, you know, because an ambassador for Themelio could look like you could have 10 different ambassadors, all with very different skill sets, you know. So maybe some people to help out in the Discord in terms of moderating, people who have, you know, maybe a strong social profile and they've got connections to bring more eyes to Themelio. That would also be great. Whatever anybody thinks they have to offer, that might be helpful. You know, we'd always love to hear about that. So I think that's a really good question, and also something that I've been thinking about for a while as a community element, something to set up. There's a lot of things we need to do there, but yeah. So this community calls like this are one of them. We really like to meet the community and see what y'all think as well. So
yeah, and if you're in like another space or, you know, like another blockchain space or something like that, then that kind of ambassador would definitely be useful for us too, because we're very interested in getting people to start actually developing applications that are, you know, plugging into Themelio.
Yeah, that was actually something we discussed on, I think it might have been our first community call, which people who weren't around at the time can check out on YouTube. I think it was a question I asked you all, where asking what type of applications would you actually like to see on Themelio, and you all had completely different answers, but they're all really good as well. So that might be a fun one to touch on again. I'm trying to think. I think Eric, you had yours was about peer-to-peer communication. Encrypted communication. I'm not sure. I'm trying to recall. There was quite a few good ones. Okay, so I prepared a couple of questions that I think we can kick off with. So, is there any timeline for upcoming developments, or what can people expect to see in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I would say like on the technical side, we're definitely going to release newer and better versions of the wallet and kind of like have it be more and more production ready. And we would also like, so then the wallet would also include features like, it would let people participate in staking and that kind of thing. So we're also like finalizing like a tokenomics TIP, like a network upgrade that would finalize kind of the tokenomics of the whole system, including things like, adding block rewards temporarily for bootstrapping and that kind of thing. So if people start staking soon, you'll be able to get pretty substantial rewards, which is very nice. Obviously now you guys can't really stake yet because we haven't sold any SIM to you, but you guys can test things out in the test net definitely. And we are planning on doing a token launch optimistically in April. So that will most likely be through Republic, the token sale provider. And so anybody who's either outside the US or a accredited investor inside the US would be able to participate and buy SIM, which is a proof of stake token. And that would let you invest in the future of our network.
Awesome. I'm sure plenty of people will be looking forward to that. More details on that. So, okay. So I guess following on from that, I guess we already mentioned about identifying useful people who might like to build on Themelio. Is there any projects out there, or like potential partners that like anybody from the community or the team had in mind, or thought that might be a really good fit for what Themelio are working on?
I feel like just anything kind of like security/privacy related is a good fit. And, for example, it would be really great to have some kind of like naming system or decentralized communication network built on our system. And that's actually something we would be interested in building ourselves after we launch the token and launch the network to the public.
Yeah, that was that was shown to be super successful on Ethereum. Cool.
Yeah, I'd also like to just see like some kind of ZK rollup or something like that, like ZK Sync or something, because on the Themelio base layer, we don't have like privacy built in, and that's part of the design, because Eric is trying to build something that is like extremely minimal, so that you don't have like fancy crypto that might break in 10 years, because the base layer is it's designed to stick around longer than just 10 years. But that does mean that like in order to achieve privacy and like randomness and some of the cooler things, we're going to need like those to be applications on top of it.
Definitely.
So, yeah, excited to see that.
Yeah.
Cool. So sorry, I lost my trail of thought there a moment. Excuse me. So I guess with some things like like naming systems and stuff being built on Themelio would be pretty cool. Would that kind of lead us towards potential NFTs and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, we can already build NFTs. NFTs are really easy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Cool. I guess, okay, so for the couple of people that have joined us that might not have been here before, It might be good to even like touch on the two token system.
Yeah, definitely.
So we could, give a little insight into what Mel is and how it works. Why it's
basically,
unique.
in Themelio, there are like two basic tokens built into the protocol, MEL and SIM. And MEL is kind of your default money token. It's basically like the Bitcoin in the Bitcoin blockchain, or Ether in the Ethereum blockchain. Like all the fees are paid in MEL, all the transactions default to being in MEL. And MEL is what we call an endogenous stablecoin. So it's actually a currency that keeps a stable value without being tied to a fiat currency like a US dollar. So it's completely decentralized, it's completely independent of any other currency, but its price is not going to go up and down like crazy. And that's really revolutionary because you can actually use MEL as money. You can list your grocery prices in MEL. You can save MEL without worrying about it randomly going up and down every single day. And the second currency that Themelio comes with is SIM. So that is actually the currency used for proof of stake on our network. So that's if you want to kind of buy a piece of our network, that's the currency you buy and stake. And this currency doesn't have a stable value. It has a very volatile value that goes up and down. And if you want to bet on Themelio going to the moon, so to speak, that's the currency you would want. So that's kind of the two built-in currencies. So when we're actually doing a token sale, we will be selling our stake in SIM because you actually can mint your own MEL yourself. You don't actually have to buy it from us. But SIM is ownership of the network, and that's what we're going to be selling in a public token sale. So I guess that's like the explanation.
Awesome. And I guess for anybody that isn't aware, the website is being redeveloped.
Definitely.
And
we will have
like a new
website this week, I believe.
Nice. That'll come together nicely. Yeah, and I've seen some.
Yes.
That I would like to spark. I don't know if this is diving too far off the deep end off the bat, but I'll just ask it and y'all can decide. So what do you think, Eric, about like stable coins like that are tied to fiat currency? How do you think those are going to be affected if say, just in like some imaginary scenario, the US deems that Russia is using USDT to fund like operations and bypass sanctions?
Yeah.
So they actually make it illegal in some way. How do you think that stable coins will be affected?
Well, I think that would be very bad. I don't think that's really likely, actually, because I don't think regulatorily wise, stable coins are any easier to control than, let's say, Bitcoin, because it's not like they can just, tell, let's say, the DAI governance token holders, just have the peg depeg, right? Like, or something like that. So I think however, that existing fiat, the kind of scenario that would really drive interest away from existing fiat currencies would be basically when the fiat currency is less trusted, right? So, people already trust the US dollar less. And you could, even with regulation, you could have something like people deeming using USDT to, let's say, wire money to Russia as being using the US dollar because that's the stable coin, and that being illegal. Like, that wouldn't necessarily ruin the USDT, but it would definitely make it being tied to fiat a liability. I think that basically with MEL, the really cool thing is that you actually have a reasonable currency in crypto space, so to speak, that you can send to people, save and things like that, without worrying about what goes on kind of in the fiat nominal world. And so I would MEL would be really a perfect currency to use in areas where the fiat infrastructure is down. And so, Bitcoin, for example, it's not that great. Like if I'm, let's say, in Ukraine or something, and all the ATMs have stopped working, sure, I could use Bitcoin to pay people, but why would they want Bitcoin? Because if they keep the Bitcoin, it's going to go up and down like crazy, and it's not a reliable store of value. So nobody would want to accept it as money unless to exchange immediately to fiat. And if the way of exchanging to fiat is blocked, then Bitcoin actually loses a lot of its utility, which is currently mostly as a transfer tool. But with MEL, it's okay if you have the MEL sitting in your wallet for indefinitely and use that to buy more goods because the value is stable.
The other thing I wanted to touch on of your question, Jay, is saying, oh, well, what happens if we tie this thing to a fiat currency? Quick question, and this isn't at you, it's just at the idea. Are any fiat currencies stable, like ever? So you're saying let's tie this thing to that thing that's like the weather, like
like it's more stable than Bitcoin, which is not saying much.
Still not stable though.
Yeah, it's still not very stable. I think the real idea is that we want our currency to be backed by real resources and not just by nominal or fiat resources. So that's really what MEL accomplishes.
Yeah, that's a good point about like DAI and stuff, because I was thinking, if stable coins are actually just straight up in some sense made illegal, I think things like USDT would have a lot of problems, because the whole premise that they're stable is backed on the fact that they have like assets reserved.
Yeah, in USDT's case, nobody actually knows. But I think with USDC, for example, they're really explicit about where all the USD is backed and that kind of thing. So that's definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a funny one actually, because
harder. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say with USDT, I've been hearing about that for years, where people don't actually know where it's backed. That's why I liked DAI as a function of the Maker protocol. I thought that was interesting, but yeah.
Definitely, personally, if I were to hold large amounts of a US dollar-backed stablecoin, I would probably choose DAI.
Yeah, that's what I was using while I was holding US dollar stable coins, but I don't do that anymore. But that's just me. That's not advice.
Like hundreds of dollars.
What was that?
The only problem is transaction fees in DAI are like hundreds of dollars to move.
That's also true, actually. Yeah.
I mean, you could move it to some layer 2 like Arbitrum or whatever, but Ethereum transaction fees are crazy. So that's definitely a problem that Themelio will also solve, because we do have support many more transactions per second than Ethereum on one hand, and we're perfect for developing scalable layer 2s like rollups and state channels on the other hand. So
that's actually, I guess, so that's something I've also been learning about lately, was the difference between state channels and rollups, which is it. I'll be honest, I'm not very well versed. It's pretty complicated stuff, but for me. But which might be a better option for Themelio, or would?
Well, I think it really depends on the use case, right? Because the thing about state channels, where I'm really thinking, Lightning Network style payment channels, is that they are very low cost. They are very simple cryptographically and very easy to kind of set up. But the problem is that they don't have as good security as the underlying blockchain, because if attacks happen in payment channels, you need some mechanism of kind of settling on the underlying blockchain, and that requires certain liveness requirements. Basically, you have to open your wallet every now and then to check the blockchain to make sure nobody's doing anything about it. Now, ZK rollups definitely have the advantage that they have the same security as the underlying blockchain. So we could actually build applications like ZK rollups that don't trust anything other than the Themelio blockchain itself, which is great. And also the payment, ZK rollups are more costly and more complex, definitely. Optimistic rollups are sometimes something in between, I would say. They are less secure than ZK rollups, more like payment channels in that sense.
Gotcha. So I guess with roll-ups in general, you're just correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like it's a regression. How would you say? It's you take the blockchain and you just you make all of it replicate basically on top of itself, and it's rolled up into a smaller thing. Sorry, this is going to be the worst explanation ever, so excuse me for this. But
No, I mean, that's
Good effort, yeah. Keep
but
trying.
you can still ultimately encounter the same issues whereby fees can still go super high if there's enough traffic, or is there a modification there?
Well,
that
the
prevents that?
difference here is really that with rollups, you could have, for example, multiple rollups of button watching. You could also have you could also have a rollup that's really optimized just for being fast without caring about security, because the security is a responsibility of the underlying blockchain. So it does actually really improve like security. So you could imagine, let's say, some wallet app just having their own completely centralized rollup for sending payments on. And it's fine because they're continually proving that that centralized service is operating correctly on the blockchain. So they cannot do anything about it. So that's the general premise between rollups. You do some things off-chain, but you prove facts about what you're doing off-chain, on-chain.
Yeah, the rollups do still have the issue that you have to upload every transaction that is done in them to the main chain. Like they're compressed, they're extremely compressed, but it's still just like an order, like a linear order almost of how much performance increase you can get.
Definitely. It's definitely not as like, as incredibly scalable as something like, basically something like payment channels. Although even in payment channels, you still have to open and close the channels, but that's probably less of a cost.
Yeah, because at least in payment channels, like the total fees that you're paying to the base layer, they aren't proportional to how much you're actually using the payment channel. Versus with rollups, it will be proportional, unfortunately.
Yes, and unfortunately. But you could also imagine payment channels on rollups on layer 1, which would be super duper cheap, probably. So.
Yeah.
Cool. That was yeah, Jay, the word I was looking for was compressed, and you managed to sum up what I said in 3 sentences with one word, so thank you for that as well.
Also, like with optimistic rollups, I think you don't necessarily have to send every transaction down. You basically only do that for fraud proofs. But like optimistic rollups, I'm not super hyped about them. But like they're kind of optimistic, as in like you could easily run into situations where the rollup does something bad, but the fraud proof for that is so humongous and gassy to run that like it's impractical to actually show it to layer 1. So like I'm generally I favor ZK rollups for rollups and for things that can take the security hit just using payment channels.
Yeah, I really wonder if there is like an open question there of, is there a way to basically get like the non-proportionality like scaling of an optimistic rollup, but have complete security like in a zero knowledge rollup.
So like I've actually talked to some people about this, and like technically it kind of is, because you can actually do what is known as like a recursive ZK proof. Basically, you can also have a zero knowledge proof that these zero knowledge proof pieces are correct, and that is constant size. So you're actually proving that somebody verified the ZK proofs correctly. So that's possible. The problem with it is really like all rollups also run into like data availability problems, and you have to send like data availability proofs onto layer 1, or at least commit to them onto layer 1, and that can become a scalability challenge too. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, you could scale the computation, but not necessarily the data. The data still has to be stored on the layer 1.
So, if you don't have to necessarily store the data on layer 1. You can, let's say, store it in IPFS or something. But the idea is kind of like you still have to point to
the security. Yeah. It's a sacrifice in security to some extent, but maybe there's ways to improve that.
Definitely.
Cool. So I think a couple of additional people might have joined the call since we kicked it off. So if anybody, just for context, if anybody has and would like to, hey Marco, I see you've joined. If anybody would like to ask some questions, introduce themselves, you're all more than welcome to do so. We'd love that. I had actually prepared a couple of questions to ask the community, which I thought might be fun. but I don't know if I want to put you on the spot like that, or maybe I can ask them and we can get general answers from the team as well. Let me have a look. So I guess, yeah, this is kind of a community question, but we could also apply it to our team here at Themelio. So what was it that attracted you all to crypto and blockchain, and particularly Themelio in this case? I know the last part might not apply, or maybe it does apply to all of you guys, but if anybody from the community wants to take that.
I can give it a go if anyone wants to have me break the ice.
Go for it.
You. Yeah, the thing about it is I'm actually not a long-handed crypto guy, but I am a bit of an expert in the field of Rust. So having worked on the compiler and written books and so on and so forth, it's the whole deal of whether I wanted to be in cryptocurrency or not, I was going to be because Rust. And as far as why Themelio, Eric and I had a chat. We got on well. Here we are.
Yeah.
You really think that's the case? That most work right now in Rust is in cryptocurrency?
I would say you see small projects here and there. There are very, very big things. Like there's a ton of work with DNS that's being done to, speed up kind of patching, unfortunately, not rethinking DNS. But there's that. There are, whether people realize it or not, tons and tons and tons of API web servers that kind of just silently function because they work, But I don't know of a whole lot of projects. Like you do have things like Pop OS, which is really lovely. Like a lot of their tooling and things like that are written in Rust, coming from System 76. And then you do have a lot of things where Amazon has kind of like taken on Rust and gone like, this is a big deal. We should use this. So they're not only writing things in it, at this point they've written like a container runtime that's written in Rust that's like infinitely faster than everything else. And you do see a lot of really, really unique things. One of the things that I'm excited most at this point is that Rust is kind of budging its way into the Linux kernel because memory bugs are a real thing and Rust doesn't care. So that's something exciting. And then, you also have other projects like Redux OS, which is a microkernel completely written in Rust. But unfortunately, to kind of your point, what you hear the most about is, cryptocurrency, even though there are a lot of really great things.
Yeah, and there's not as much money in Redux.
Yeah.
Which is painful, I would say, because it's a great idea.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing about crypto is that I feel like kind of its ratio of public impact to the amount of money it can raise is pretty good. As in, crypto projects, I do feel like contribute lots of value to the community, and because they're crypto projects, they also have the means of raising the funds to do it well. So I feel like we might be seeing a lot more open source projects kind of like throw in a token just to benefit from this factor. And kind of, in a sense, become crypto projects, though not really. I'm thinking about projects like, for example, Brave, which is really just a browser project at the end of the day, but because they sell BAT, people think of them as a crypto project. But I feel like it might be interesting to see more projects where they're explicitly not a crypto project, but they're still selling tokens as a fundraising factor.
Yeah, I think it's almost an interesting point to we talk a lot about how trust is the core value proposition, but it seems like tokens and the ability to fundraise is actually, even though you could say that's something that already exists in a lot of platforms like Patreon and other stuff, or like GoFundMe, it's definitely.
I think it still comes down to trust, because I think finance is probably one of the most centralized and overregulated things in the traditional economy, and so definitely, if you want to fundraise on something like Patreon or GoFundMe and that kind of thing, then you are subject to a ton of more regulations. You have to trust a ton of more people than you do when you use crypto. So if I want to fundraise for some, like, I don't know, some weird controversial cause, it might be really hard for me to gain funding elsewhere. And the platforms would decide who gets to see my advertisements and that kind of thing. But if I fundraise on on crypto, that's no longer an issue. And I think like that's really empowering for a lot of projects.
Yeah, I think also just the ability to like program the money much closer to like the incentives that you actually want in the project is very valuable.
Yeah, and all of that really requires endogenous trust, because hypothetically you could have GoFundMe support writing a piece of Python code that controls how this money is dispersed, but you're still trusting them to run that code. And with endogenous trust on blockchains, you're trusting this really autonomous mechanism to run that code for you, which really enables a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
Cool. Yeah, that's so to your point, Jay, as well, about like, we think about blockchain and crypto and all of that kind of thing, and but to the point you raised about the token, and like the token is almost what really attracts a lot of people, and you see these other projects that aren't crypto native that just employ a token, but yeah, there's all kinds of weird like new economic models that are coming out of this, and people are learning about all different types of ways to, and you see it in like NFT communities as well, and all kinds of, it's just like expansive in every direction at the moment. So
yeah, it's like I can't rationalize it at all. And like when people ask me, why are NFTs so big, I'm like, maybe you should go like speak to like somebody that sells art or something. Just like, I don't know, man. I just code. I have no idea why. But,
that's something that I was like grappling with for a while, like trying to figure it out, because I'm like, I might go and buy a nice painting somewhere off an artist locally that cost me 20-30 euros or whatever, $40, whatever, and I'm like, that's really nice. I can put it on my wall, look at it, and admire it every day. And then I look at some piece of art online, and I'm like, this costs 2F. And I'm like, what? So, but yeah, I think it's like the community behind it seems to be really what draws in the value. And it's weird. It's like almost like a social club. I'm gradually coming around to understand.
When people buy NFTs, a lot of the times they feel like they're just kind of like donating money to the artist almost. I feel like it's less about them actually wanting the art. Like, especially certain things, like for example, like, I really don't understand automatically generated art. I think like that's like literally non-scarce, and like it's almost not art. But like a lot of NFT art is like mass automatic generated art, like generated art. But I feel like I feel like in those cases it's more like trying to raise funds for some kind of interesting projects. It's less so that people actually want the art. It's more like Girl Scout cookies basically. So
100%, yeah.
I tend to think of NFTs like collectible trading cards. And even like the automatically generated ones, you kind of create your own scarcity within your set of NFTs, because there's like a few that are like really cool looking that people really want for some reason.
Yeah.
And then, what did you say? Cool looking? You're kind of cutting out, Marco, but cool. Cool looking for some of these NFTs isn't that cool looking, but whatever, to some people. So you create your own market.
One thing, I've chatted with some folks in the crypto space who tend to be a little allergic to NFTs, and one way I've described it as just it's its own digital art market. Different assets hold value, will go up in value, and a lot of times that's people's entry into it. They're like, oh, a Bored Ape is really expensive, but it's going to probably hold its value or go up over time, and then they make the jump into it. So another way to think about it too. I think that works.
Yeah. collectible trading cards, art.
Kind of just like in art, like it's I think a big question as to whether like the people are creating the value or whether like the art is actually valuable. Like with the what's his name, the Ross Ulbricht DAO. You know, Ross Ulbricht is the Dread Pirate Roberts guy, and
Silk
they
Road
have
guy.
the what?
The Silk Road guy. Even
Yeah,
more
exactly.
descriptive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the DAO for him raised $1, and they did it by buying an NFT of some art that he made when he was in prison. And like, you know, when you think about it, like if somebody just sold that NFT on its own, it probably would not have sold for 14 million. But the DAO has bought it for 14 million, pretty much.
Yeah.
And they own it. It probably is worth that just because they're all holding it, and I don't know why, but it seems to be the case.
Well, I think like you can only say so if somebody else offered to buy it off of them for all that much money. So like I think here you really don't have like the value really isn't in the NFT. It's just kind of a vehicle for fundraising.
What is he gonna do with $14 million? Does he get it? Like, where does this money go?
I think his lawyers get it, or the DAO uses it for ways to free Ross Ulbricht.
You also can buy
Good
like
luck.
snacks and stuff in prison, so I'm sure it's also you can spend it on food and things like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, they gave it to him as commissary.
I'm sure like a portion of that.
That makes sense. Yeah, he can get all the Snickers bars he wants. That guy went to UT Dallas.
Yeah, that's our school.
Whoosh.
Okay, so I guess where did we come
We're at
from?
NFTs.
I guess we'd had a few. So yeah, the question which I was kind of looking to throw around to see what everybody thought was like, what generally attracted you to crypto and blockchain, and we kind of quickly segued into NFTs, which is totally fine because I'm sure that's like the answer for a lot of people. But yeah, if anybody else on here would like to have a go at that, I can even give my story, what attracted me to crypto and NFTs. It was a good friend of mine who basically had went to study his third university course, hyper intelligent dude who basically had dropped out of everything, and then he became super enthusiastic about Ethereum in 2017 and introduced me. So I was working as a kitchen porter, cleaning dishes at the time, thinking this is too exciting to pass up. So eventually just started reading about it every evening after work, and eventually took the leap in and never looked back. So that was it for me, and then got a job working in community for another company a while back, like 2018, very early. So that was it. It was just like opening up a whole new world. Just kind of spiraled out from there. And it's like, what I find super interesting about it, I don't know if anybody can relate, it's like the more time that I spend in crypto and blockchain, the more that I learn, but the more I realize that I don't know, because it's like everything is expanding and growing much faster than I can retain.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's how everything is. As you learn more stuff, you're just like, no, there's way too much. I'm never gonna know all of this.
It's like actively evolving. That's the really crazy part. Is like,
yeah, that's true.
If you ever think you have a hold on something, just go look at the other projects, and it's already changed. Like,
yeah, that's the whole thing about. I think you just said here's open source, because everyone, like, if you have your own idea and you're like the guy that does that thing, you get it. Like, you're writing the whole world as it goes. But it's kind of like Rumpelstiltskin, where you go like, oh, I'll just have a nap. You go like, where did this tree come from? Why is this rock? Where's my rock? That's not the correct rock. And like everything is different every time you go, and it's like keeping up with the cool kids all the time, because it's ever changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Fashion trends.
Okay, let me see. So again, I have another one that I wanted to ask in a general sense for community. So if anybody wants to take that, or if anybody from the team would like it, is also a good one. So who would you like to see Eric and the Themelio team talking to, like in a Twitter Spaces in a social event, who would be like, who do you think would be a super interesting one to have a conversation with? If that makes sense.
In
Like,
regards
think
to
big
cryptocurrency
picture. You
or
can
like
be.
feelings on life.
I
It would be a cool
I had
person.
initially thought of relating to blockchain and all of that, but I didn't ask the question very well, so I'll definitely accept any general
No worries.
answers on
I'm
that.
just here to be a pedant. It's fine.
No, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I would see if anybody in the community would want to answer that.
Yeah, you guys can ask questions in chat if you don't want to speak.
Yeah, on the Discord.
Oh yes, I advised that, but I didn't check back in. Sorry.
Yeah, Darren's basically just saying like, who's your favorite imaginary dinner? Edgar Allan Poe and that guy and the aforementioned rock that was blue and now is green.
Batman versus Eric.
Batman.
I think Eric may be a little underpowered because that dude's a juicer.
But Eric has privacy, man.
Good luck
Just
finding
saying.
him.
Well, yeah, there's that. As
No
long
worries.
as he can stay hidden, he's fine.
Stays hidden.
I'm sure there'd be some like crossover values, in a positive way. I mean, so.
Yeah.
Depending
I've seen
on
Eric do vigilante justice before. We went to Idaho, and we were walking late at night one time, and he just disappeared. And then I see a guy running with a cape like in front of us. He like punches the bad guy.
And I really thought that was going to be a real story.
I saw Eric doing vigilante justice. Oh,
I was on board, so.
Yeah.
Like, no, that really happened. It did.
It happened.
Like one time he made a VPN. Shit, that's kind of vigilante.
One time
He did what?
Made a VPN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the VPN he made is kind of vigilante justice. Stands on the sidelines and allows people to connect to the internet, uplifting their freedom. Yeah.
I wonder, do we have anybody here from the GEF community, actually?
I don't know. Probably not. Like, I think they're probably sleeping. I'm not sure.
Fair.
Eric versus Batman. It's funny. Oh. I did want to ask the question that you asked earlier, Derek, to Jay and Marco. Why did you guys join blockchain? Like, why did you do that?
I can give the story of how I first learned about cryptocurrency, which is all the way back in 2014. I was reading a sci-fi book called Accelerando by Carl Strauss, and in it there's like this badass called Manfred Max who like he does a lot of like really cool things, just like mess with people or mess with like giant institutions, and he like built the first idea of like smart contracts being like programmable contracts and like programmable companies, and he had like this whole grid of companies where he had ownership of some stuff that he didn't want people to like sue him for, so he would just move it through this grid of companies that he had extremely quickly so that nobody could ever like pin down the company that actually owned the assets. And so I just Googled smart contract to see if there's anything real like that. And Ethereum came up, and I read the white paper and I was like, cool.
Whoa.
Mine's similar in that it was around the same time. But for me, it was just like just being like too online. And then I was like, oh, there's a I discovered Tor and things like that. And I was like, okay, what is Tor used for? And like, oh, there's like a marketplace, and it has this weird digital money. And so like I started kind of like getting into it that way. But it wasn't until I was in college that I really started getting into the specifics of blockchain technology. But yeah, it was similar inspiration. I thought it was more. It was closer to like in movies they always have like the hackers like doing some crazy stuff, kind of like what you were talking about, Jay. But then it was like, oh, like this is kind of like that in real life. It's like you can move money around. You can look at the source code. you can like, I don't know, it just seemed like very it seemed very cool. And I've always been interested in like fintech, so it was like a nice intersection of a lot of things where I like and am interested in.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I got into blockchain. Well, I never really got into blockchain. But I always had like a passing interest in the field, mostly because of my proximity to Marco and Jay. We went to the same college. And so, I'd always talk to Jay, I'd always talk to Marco about especially Marco, about how we thought blockchain technology worked, because we didn't like read the white papers or anything. We would just like sit around and like talk about like what we knew about the distributed systems. And yeah, so I can't really talk about how like I got into blockchain, because as I said, I never really did, but until I got the job working for Themelio. But I was like looking at a bunch of problems. For example, like or I was looking at a bunch of problems that like I didn't see an easy solution for. Like, how can you verify that a program that you've installed is like the actually like verified one, that the website you downloaded it from, claims it to be, or the author claims it to be? Well, you have to trust the website, and you have to trust that the hash that they put on the website is still valid, and you have to trust like all of these things. And then like I go all the way down the rabbit hole of like, who am I trusting? And it's like, well, I trust that like my DNS works. I trust that my TLS is working. I trust like all these things, and really I'm just like trusting people at the end of it. And so I was really interested to hear like the proposal of doing like a PKI on Themelio, having public key infrastructure on like a trustless system, and then doing like DNS and stuff, or TNS or ENS, in a decentralized trustless way that we don't have to actually rely on all these people at the end of it. There's like actually verified sources. I think that's really cool. Endogenous trust on Themelio.
Yeah, me too. I think that's like really the unique, or one of the very unique selling points that really attracts me. But just what you guys are after discussing there kind of leads me to an interesting question. Do you feel like, so given that you're like relatively new to working in the blockchain space, like I've worked in communication, we'll say, for blockchain companies, like as a contractor for a number of years now, and I've worked with multiple different companies. And I don't know, I almost find like I've had a sense of fatigue with that, because I've worked with so many projects where I'm like, this is my job. But all of you guys are like relatively new to working in the industry, I guess. And then you're also working on something that you actively like. So for instance, it's easy for me to join these calls because I like Themelio and I like all of you guys. So whereas I've worked on various other projects where I'm like, I feel like I'm pushing a rock up a hill. So do you feel like how would you say, given that like all of your exposure to working in the industry is relatively new, do you think that's almost like, it could be perceived as a disadvantage, but the way I'm seeing it from hearing what you're like, how you're describing things, it sounds like it could be a positive thing rather than
I feel like
a
the
drawback.
thing about blockchain is that at the end of the day, it's not that complicated. It's just a ordering and constraining gadgets, basically. And I feel like we can easily get kind of too deep into the crypto memes and trends of the day, and like really, I feel like lots of people could have 10 years of experience, for example, just doing crypto things and like been with Bitcoin since the beginning. That kind of person tends to kind of be, maybe they can be more easily trapped in like existing mindsets of how do you do crypto and things like that. I actually do feel like it is an advantage that our team mostly doesn't come from like the really old school crypto community. I mean, myself, my background is also mostly in security and privacy research, and I got into blockchains really trying to solve the business in general's problem, essentially, and finding Bitcoin in that process. And I never kind of considered myself part of the crypto community, although I followed developments in it for quite a long time. So like I think like Themelio definitely kind of is a different branch of the whole tech tree of crypto, so to speak. And I think like that's really reflected in the composition of our team too.
Mm. Yeah, I haven't had time to become cynical. I think that's what you're getting at, right, Darren?
Not really cynical,
bit.
more like
Jaded.
the thing is that when everybody else thinks that this is the major problem to solve, like for example now, right? Like whenever you make a new L1, everybody thinks like you need to solve scalability. That's like the major challenge for new L1s. Then that really kind of limits what you're thinking, because Themelio's
I see what you're talking about too.
The big problem is not scalability. It's actually security. We haven't solved security yet. Let's not talk about scalability yet, which we can do with rollups anyway. So it's kind of like, I think the really strange thing is that crypto is a very new and very rapidly evolving space on one hand, but on the other hand, there's so much groupthink and trend following thinking going on, and the latter is really bad for the former. Like if you keep thinking inside the box, you can't really innovate, which is really what you need to do in such a new space.
Yeah. So there's there's being cynical because you've been in it for so long, and then there's also just thinking the same things as everybody else because that's what you're used to. And so it does help to be fresh and new, I guess.
Yeah, from my perspective, and this is like just me personally, I have a long history of building systems and keeping things happy and boring and up to date and so on. Yeah, boringly safe, boringly stable. Like, how about that box that we haven't talked about in 7 years? You're like, that's Meat's box. Don't, just leave it alone. It works.
That's the COBOL box.
Yeah, just leave it. But the thing about it is, with that, I always look at things kind of like a commando. Like I get into a situation, like, great, how do we get out of this? And everything's always different. Everything's never the same. And with that, I kind of go in going, okay, I can trust some of this stuff, or I can feel like this is accurate. But for the most part, I kind of look at it like a child and just say, what is this? Why does this work? Does this work? And actually, try to understand each kind of gear and cog and say, well, if this holds up to the test of fire, then it gets to stay. Otherwise, we need to figure out something better.
I will say that there's some value in watching the ecosystem. Like as we evolve, we see a lot of we learn new things or new problems. Like one of those would be MEV, and just like the issue of being able to reorder transactions, being the proposer of a block.
Yeah.
Can I stop you real quick? Sorry. What is MEV? Just
MEV is like minor extracted value. Is that what it stands for? It's basically like the fact that whoever gets to propose the block has like an incentive, or people will pay that person if they know who it is to put their transactions. So people will watch the transaction pool before a block is proposed. They'll find like large arbitrage trades and stuff, and then they'll pay the proposer to put their transaction before the big one, basically like front running it. And so there's like this whole game of mining, like the meta mining game now.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Now we're facing all these issues about like we need to like either prove the order of like individual transactions or have some kind of like multi-party like privacy or like computation or something.
Well, I mean, like you could also do something like Themelio does, which is have there be no defined order within the transactions in the block. So I think like that's really showing the limitations of kind of like a smart contract stateful like based system where you could have like the ordering within a block not so much, right? So, for example, in Themelio, when you're doing like mail swap transactions and things, all the transactions in the block are actually kind of batched together and executed together. So there's literally no way of front running on people within the same block, at least.
I think that's such a good solution from the start, because then you see, like, for example, the way Ethereum's kind of tackling it, or the biggest like FTC is Flashbots, which is being developed by Ethermind, and basically it's like setting up your own network of miner extractable value that gets redistributed like evenly across everybody in the network. So it's kind of like a way of getting around it by using it itself. But it's like kind of very like complicated, not very elegant. So I'm like, I think it's very cool that there's no, ordering in Themelio. They all are basically concurrent transactions. So get started with solving this problem.
Yeah, but just to be clear, there's no ordering in Themelio, but there is like double spends. And so if two things try to spend the same coin, then only one.
Like they have to pick one first. Pick one and go through, right? But like I would expect that to just be whoever pays the more fees and something like that.
Sorry?
Wait, whoever paid more than fees?
No, like whoever pays more fees can, if you have two transactions that both validly try to spend in UTXO, right? Probably the rational choice for the miner is to pick whoever pays more fees. Right?
So thanks for explaining that, Jay. I suppose to the point of the MEV not having that in place, would that, so this is just me trying to figure it out in my head, would that mean that there's less probability of gas fees going higher in general, like on times of, how would you say, if let's say hypothetically there was a project had built on top of Themelio, and people were using Mel to try and partake in a token sale there or a fundraise. And we'll just say there was a lot of anticipation and excitement, and it was going to sell out in 10 minutes. Would this feature of not having the MEV mean that it would be a fair sale and people wouldn't have to spend like crazy amounts of gas to partake?
Well, like I think like not necessarily, because that's really constrained by how fast your blockchain is, right? So if the blockchain gets congested, the gas is going to be expensive no matter what. It would kind of make it harder to like really micro manage like exactly like where you're like exactly like in what position your transaction is. Also, like the thing about Themelio's whole UTXO data structure is also that it's probably very hard to actually have designer contracts that can operate a high throughput that is purely sequential, because there isn't such a thing as a smart contract. You have to kind of build like a sequential chain of UTXOs, and it may or may not go through, right? So if one of the transactions gets delayed a block, the whole chain can't go through. So just kind of like really fine-tuned timing differences would matter a lot less, I would imagine. But you will still have expensive gas fees, because if somebody spams the network, gas fees aren't going to go up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. It feels like there's no way to determine like this is unimportant nonsense that we shouldn't worry about that much, and then like this is important stuff.
The way you determine that is by having people pay fees, right? If they're willing to pay higher fees, it means that it's more important.
Yeah, but like those people are willing to pay high fees to have Neopets on Themelio, and then these people just doing money
the whole idea is really that if they're actually willing to pay higher fees, that means that to them it's more important than whatever you're trying to do is to you, right? So I think that's the whole idea behind like why fee markets exist, right? The idea is that you allocate the use to the people who actually need it most urgent.
So who can pay for it most.
Yeah, and I think like if you want to avoid that, then don't make like participating in sales so urgent. Like for example, don't have things like really small time limits and that kind of thing. So that's really up to the token sellers.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you want to have like you want to have a continuous pool of people.
That's really up to the token sellers per people to decide. If they feel like it's good publicity that people are paying like hundreds of dollars of gas and flooding the whole network, like let them do that, right? But
yeah, and I can speak a little bit to that. Sorry, go for it, Jay. I'll go next.
I think like the long-term goal for applications is to become not proportionally their usage should not be proportional to the base chain, so that like a bunch of use, like when it spikes on some roll up, the main chain won't affect all the other applications.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's both like a layer one problem, but it's also like the applications themselves need to further develop to reach a state.
I see. Yeah, there is an incentive for the application developer to optimize this gas problem as well.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that.
That is actually interesting enough. So when I see feedback in Discord channels for, we'll just say, NFT projects where people are minting or claiming tokens or an NFT or something like that, one of the things I see when they do a good job is people being super happy that whatever way the contract was designed, that they didn't have to pay huge amounts of gas.
Yeah.
So that's really become like a sticking point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So,
but you know, I mean, like, it's really also just because of things like Ethereum being so expensive. Like, I've talked to some people at ETH Denver who were talking about how now, if you want to launch a new token project and stuff, or NFT, you pretty much have to handwrite EVM assembly so that your gas is just a little lower than your competitors, because the EVM compiler, first of all, like the Solidity compiler kind of sucks, and like everybody does like crazy hacks to reduce gas usage, and that's why a big reason why you see all these bugs, because a lot of these programs are written in really convoluted fashions just to use a little bit less gas.
All I can think of is the fast inverse square root from Quake.
Yeah, that kind of
That's
thing.
all I can think of.
Like, so I think really like we don't want gas to be so expensive as to push people to do that, because that's really an inefficient use of the resources. But like, I think like with Themelio, we can avoid that because we do have a lot more capacity than Ethereum, and we will have more layer 2s to use.
Can you talk about the capacity?
Yeah, because the main difference here is that, first of all, we don't have like contracts in our system are stateless. They can't like actually like modify blockchain state directly. They can only constrain transactions. They can't like generate transactions, so to speak. The other thing is that because it's a UTXO-based model, the transactions within the block can all be processed in parallel. So that also really increases capacity.
Yeah, that's like the dream of Ethereum, is that you could parallelize transactions.
Yeah.
But it's extremely difficult in their model, and we get it for free.
Yeah.
We get it for free. I like that.
What's our? Oh, sorry, Darren.
No, go for it.
What's our TPS? Was it 10,000? Did I think that right?
Like 1,000. But it's actually kind of like limited by some really stupid factors that I hope we can fix. So it's mostly limited by stupid things like the way the network protocol works and that kind of thing. So like I would imagine like maximum TPS to be in the range of a few thousand.
Okay, cool. And those would be like changes that would be coming before 1.0, or would it matter because they're not consensus breaking?
Some of them could be after because it's not consensus critical.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's another question. If Themelio ends up being like highly embedded, like that's the dream, right? We could still be doing development on the like underlying protocols, just not like the consensus critical pieces.
Yeah, and like the other deeply embedded parts, like the deeply embedded software doesn't need to be changed either, since as long as we make the protocols like backwards compatible, right? Like the network protocol and that kind of thing. So like it's really easy to improve things as long as like basically we have the core consensus critical part be stable. Yeah.
So just on that, so I guess for people coming to Themelio, and how we talk about the blockchain not necessarily changing, is that what you're referring to now? So like the core consensus will stay the same, but that modifications can be made around that to make things more efficient and work better. And okay, cool. Yeah, that would be that would be good for, because I imagine that could be coming at this like learning about Themelio from my point of view and having been looking at other blockchains and stuff over the years. Yeah, that would be an important differentiator for new people to fully understand. So you've got the benefits of both.
Definitely.
And just to something. Oh, God, there was a lot there. There was a lot there that I wanted to touch on. So. Yeah, so that point a moment ago about like projects launching on a blockchain, and it being a thing of really you want the token sale or the fundraise experience for projects that are building on your blockchain to be as smooth as possible, because from a community point of view, and this is kind of the area I can speak to most, dealing with the fallout from like an unhappy community of people who might have bought $500 worth of X, Y, or Z token and spent $500 or $600 of gas, and then maybe the terms of the sale weren't the best, and they ended up being even more frustrated a month later when there's some further release of tokens or something like that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see and how that plays out for projects down the line on Themelio. And I like your idea of, I feel like a lot of projects do it in a way where they want to build a lot of hype and like excitement and create some kind of FOMO thing. And that's really not a good strategy in my personal opinion, and in my experience, I haven't seen that working well. So I guess that's also one of the nice things here, where people might encounter Themelio at this stage, where we haven't got the details yet of a token sale or anything like that. Nothing's been finalized or put out publicly, but at the same time, there's a blockchain that works, that you can build things like NFTs on, that which is super exciting to many people. There's a wallet that works and is in testing and all of this kind of stuff. So it's nice to do the opposite way around, and like, what's the under promise and over deliver, I feel is a good theme that we've got going on here.
Yeah.
Under promise. Everything's broken.
Yeah, we also have a great language that one day hopefully people will be using, and then when they're finally using it, they'll be like, "Oh wow, this is nice." Just
so exciting.
I missed that part. What was that, Jay? Sorry.
That we have like a smart contract language, so you can already write smart contracts in like a very high level, nice, clean language. And we have like REPL for it, and that's something we haven't even like talked about
really. Yeah. You're working on the docs for that, right? On how to use that.
A little bit, yeah. They still need some love, I think.
Oh yeah, they could. Oh, dude! Just thinking about like actually starting a program on chain is so exciting for me. I can't even contain.
Yeah, I mean, as I've said, like to the internal team, I've already built an elliptic curve, so like you can verify the curve 25519. Like the actual cryptographic protocol is built as a smart contract in our language, Melodion, and it runs on our chain. So you can actually use like public-private curve 25519 keys as a smart contract, and that's built in our language.
Yeah.
This is all well and good, but I just don't think this is legitimate unless we can program nibbles into this. I may be dating myself, but that's kind of like the bar I hold everyone to.
What nibbles? You mean like
none of you are old enough to have had a TI-82 and needed to play games on it. This is just sad.
Oh no!
Nope.
I played Block. What is it? Block Floor or something? Block.
You're overthinking this. It's also called Snake. It's just like literally eat.
Nibbles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, how would we play Snake on chain, guys? That's a good question.
Look, these are the problems that need to be.
It's probably like the worst thing you could play on chain.
Yeah, it sounds horrible. It would be impossible to lose. Every 30 seconds, you get to make a choice.
Yeah.
Well, somebody did a demo like that using state channels. I think it was like Seller.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, why, but also cool.
Yeah. The why is unimportant when you're making a snake game for the blockchain. I do have a question about, like I've heard you mention, Eric, that Themelio is a good platform for building layer twos. What separates it from like Ethereum, for example?
Well, the thing about Ethereum is that really two things, right? First of all, Ethereum is really complex, and really it really has a ton of features that only really make sense if you're developing everything on layer one, right? So it has this complex EVM, it has all these transaction receipt stuff. Basically, it's really complex, and that means it constantly needs maintenance and change and all that entails, right? The other thing is really that Ethereum's whole smart contract model. So you have a stable smart contract that you write in Solidity, and it can mutate its own state and things like that. That's rather error prone, and it makes a lot of it really just reduces down to the fact that a lot of programs that actually write on blockchain really boil down to ordering and constraining events, essentially, and that's really what a UTXO model is. But with a smart contract model, you kind of have to write that yourself. So you've actually seen a lot of token projects, for example, that have bugs that accidentally let people print a zillion tokens to themselves and things like that. That kind of whole category of bugs would be much harder to make in a UTXO-based model.
And don't forget the other most important issue, which is that the Themelio uses a stable currency for its fees.
Yeah, and that's actually quite important because
I see.
If you're designing, let's say, some mechanism, right? Let's say you're having people post bonds to insure against them being bad and delete so that you can delete their bonds, right? It's problematic if, let's say, okay, tomorrow it drops 5x because of some disaster, and therefore actually the incentives all break and they actually benefit from messing up the whole protocol, right? Because the unit in which you're pricing all the incentives just changed under your feet. So.
That's actually a really good point, because that's a huge consideration, I think, that. So
and
let's
that's
say
all the DeFi protocols put up stable coins as collateral and things like that, and that's insane. So much of I was just talking to somebody the other day, and it's kind of remarkable how much of Web3 would just totally break if the Chainlink Oracle breaks, right? So centralized points of failure like that really mess everything up.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually.
What's Chainlink?
It's an Oracle service that gives people things the ETH US dollar exchange rate.
Okay, so it's just some company.
Well, they have this air quotes decentralized mechanism where people can submit different data sources and stuff, but it's ultimately still based on trusting the people running it.
Yeah, I mean they have a blockchain that's supposed to be an aggregate tool for decentralized oracles, and I think it's in the top 10 in market cap actually.
Yeah,
it was, at least for the longest time. I don't know exactly. It probably may well still be. Yep.
I have a question. Do you think that this whole idea of a stable currency is something that can be measured as some kind of computational process? Do you think that it will stop where it is here, or do you think that this is going to be a new field that almost grows and can evolve to people? Do you think people will play with this idea and try to create even more stable versions, or do you think?
so. I mean, I feel definitely the idea of a trustlessly definable and measurable thing as a basis for a currency is a really interesting idea, and I don't claim to have solved it with the DOSC, right? Because because of several reasons, including, for example, the DOSC is quite sensitive to electricity prices and that kind of thing. But so I think it's definitely possible to I think the idea of the purely endogenous unit of value is a really interesting idea, and I welcome kind of competition in that field. Right now, I'm not seeing any, but I can expect some popping up in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really interesting to think of, like, it's not something I'd ever heard of before, or never even really come across anything remotely like it. Like, for instance, when people talk about something being what's a good like reference for value is like the cost of a basket of goods over time.
Yeah.
This kind of thing is about as good as I've really encountered. But I guess we let me see. Is there anything? I'm going to have to jump off soon. I think we all might. We have our internal calls, but it's been super fun. Is there anything we'd like to touch on before we finish up? I had thought actually a while ago we could have had a look at some of the statistics that we looked at from the last time with you, Mead, because I know we lost that video, and that might be something fun to touch on again for people. For people who are here now.
Metrics tour.
Yeah, we lost that footage. Didn't have audio.
I don't know if we'll get to do it today, but
yeah, sure.
It would be fun at some point at least.
What was that, Marco?
If it ever gets found, the footage, it can be minted as an NFT in the future.
If it ever gets found, it could be minted as an NFT in the future. You're so quiet, by the way.
Soft spoken.
His computer is soft hearing. Soft hearing. What was that, Eric?
I was thinking about shipping Marco a new mic.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, I've been telling him to get one.
Well, I bought these headphones, and they worked for like 2 weeks. It was ridiculous, and then they broke, and it actually messed up my computer.
It messed up your computer too.
Yeah, remember I plugged them in, and the audio was like broken, and I had to reboot the computer like any time I plugged them in. So they're super broken to the point where it messed up my audio settings.
That's so messed up.
Are you running Linux?
Yeah.
Arch. Oh wait, you gotta say it.
Yeah. No, I piggyback on yours.
Yeah, he's running Arch.
Yeah, there's your mistake. No.
Success story over here. I'm running Arch too.
They were the best headphones at Walmart, and so even those tried.
See, say that back to yourself.
Yeah, I know.
Like, she was the best girl on the street corner. Wait, hold on, bad story.
No.
Yeah, I feel like just like Marco, just get some good headphones and like things. I mean, like it's like I think it'll be really nice to kind of hear you better.
Yeah, I'll get some from Amazon now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
More than $10.
They were like $40.
Wow, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. Cool.
Anything? Anyone? All of you are also silent. We're over here. Yeah, we nerd and so on and so forth. Come on, somebody make fun of us at least.
Yeah, someone say something.
Come on.
That's a good point. Yeah, no one's even had a laugh at us yet.
Positive one.
What's your favorite National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation quote? Come on, give me something.
What a specific question.
Your favorite? Say that again, Mead.
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation quote.
I don't know
Please
what
tell me
that
you
is.
have seen this.
I don't know. I need more context.
You've never seen Christmas Vacation? Chevy Chase, Randy Quaid.
No.
Okay. Wow. You guys are like
I've heard of
fetuses.
it.
You guys are like fetuses. This is ridiculous.
I've only seen Chevy Chase in Community.
You are missing out. The 80s and 90s was his by far best times, and yeah, like even the first National Lampoon's second vacation, where they intend to go to the equivalent of Disney World, and they go and they go and they go, and everything like derails them for like an entire week, and they're like, oh great, and then this happens and so on and so forth, and weird tirade, and they finally make it, and it's strange because the car park is empty. So like they drive up and there's no one there. And they're like, I guess we're just really early. And they go up and John Candy is there and he's the park guard. And he's like, sorry, folks, park's closed. Moose out front, sure told you. And like this whole thing, it's just brilliant. So if nothing else, I've given you all homework to go like enjoy some good film.
Sounds good.
National Lampoons.
Well,
Moose
I
out
guess
front,
that's
sure
kind
told
of
you.
good for our community call then. But hopefully the recording this time worked well. So
Hopefully so.
for the YouTube.
Yeah.
Super fun as always.
Yeah, guys.
Indeed.
Good chatting.
Cheers,
Thank
all.
you guys. Thanks for people for
Yes.
checking in.
Definitely. Bye.
See you guys.
Guys, have a beautiful time.
Yeah.